Hi there, this is Jennifer with Brome Fields, and today we are going to knit this headband. We're going to learn this braid and create a pretty clean edge on the side. And I liked this pattern so much that I knitted up in, hold on. So first of all, this is using Hue and Me Lion brand, Hue and Me, a bulky yarn with 10.5, size 10.5 US knitting needles. And then I liked it so much, I did it with the Woolies Thick and Quick, which is a super chunky braid. And it's a tiny bit shorter, so I don't know if it's going to be quite long enough, but it stretches a lot. They both stretch a lot. So it just depends on how wide of a band you want it to be, because the Thick and Quick, I cast on 18 stitches for both. So it's the exact same pattern. It's just now you have a visual of aid of this is a bulky yarn, this is a super bulky. So you can see how much wider it is, which if you're wearing your hair up or if you're going skiing, you may want a wider band. But for everyday wear around town, maybe something thinner. And again, it just depends on where you're at. I'm in Kansas, so that depends on the day, because this week, one day it snowed, but the day before it was 70 degrees outside. So that is the in-between winter and spring. So the Hue and Me, this is how much is left over. So I still have it attached. So I think that you can get 2 headbands out of 1 skein of yarn. So this really goes far. I'm super impressed. I'm knitting a shrug with it now, and I think I am on 4 skeins, which is really, really nice, because I thought I was going to use 6. So now I have an extra 2 skeins of yarn to play with. So I'm going to get started here. All right, so what you're going to need is size 10.5 knitting needles and 1 skein of Hue and Me Lion brand yarn, or a different bulky yarn. I will say that this is maybe a true bulky, because some other yarns that call out for bulky, I would say, are more of a worsted weight. So I would put this on the thicker side of a bulky yarn. But you can use any size yarn. Like I showed you, this one here is the bulky, and then I have the super bulky. So you can use any kind of yarn. You just need to use the coordinating needles with it. So it's not too tight, not too loose, because you want a nice stretchy cable. And you're going to need a cable needle. This is what my cable needle looks like. And then I use stitch markers to help me differentiate between the cable and the edge. So it's just to give me a physical visualization of the change in the pattern, so that I don't get confused and I know where I'm at. So I already cast on my 18 stitches. All right, and for row 1, and I just happen to be using circular knitting needles because that's what I use all the time. I would say in the very beginning, my first couple of projects, I used straight needles. But once I bought my circular needles to knit a hat and I learned how to use them to knit flat, I have never gone back to using straight needles, because I find them to be a little heavy. And these are just more comfortable to work with. And then whenever I drop one, it's attached to the other end. I can just pick it up. It doesn't get lost in the couch. I've only done that once or twice. So row 1, we're going to start with the yarn in front, and I'm going to slip 1 purlwise. Then we're going to purl 2 stitches and then place a stitch marker. All right, and then purl 12 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have these 3 stitches left, so we're going to place another stitch marker, and then I'm going to purl 1 with yarn in front, slip 1 purlwise, and then purl 1 stitch. And then we're ready for row 2. Row 2 is the right side of our work. I like my row 2 to be the right side because then I have this nice, pretty, I would call this my knit edge. So this side here, my cast on looks more like a purl stitch. So I just like those to match. So same with whenever I'm binding off, I like to bind off on a right side row with knit stitches, and if I if I bind off on a right side row, or a wrong side row, I do purl stitches. So yeah, my knits are always on the front side. With yarn in back, I'm going to slip 1 purlwise, and then I'm going to knit the first stitch and purl the second stitch. Then slip my stitch marker, and then we're going to knit 12. So we're going to knit all the stitches in between the stitch markers. So that's our cable. And that's pretty easy to remember. It's the 3 on either side outside that I have to actually pay attention and keep track of. So we're going to slip stitch marker. We're going to bring the yarn forward, purl 1, with the yarn back, slip 1 purlwise, and then knit 1 stitch. Now this stitch on the end, I do tug on that a little bit because it gets really tight, and this side here naturally is loose because of however I knit or the type of stitch it is. I'm not sure why. But this one always stays pretty loose, and this one is a little tight. So I kept just kind of tugging it so that the left side stayed loose so that they would match. And I feel like they look pretty good. But I did have to stretch this left side out, that last stitch, to keep it that way. Now for rows 3 and 4, 3, 4, and 5, you want to repeat rows 1 and 2. And then I will come back to show you row 6, which is our cable. So we're just going to repeat those 2 rows until row 6. So then I will be back to show you row 6. All right, now we are ready for row 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can tell that we have the nice, pretty knit stitches here. So that's the right side of our work. So we're ready to do a cable. So with yarn in back, we're going to slip 1 purlwise, knit 1, purl 1, slip the stitch marker, and then we're going to knit the first 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to cable 8 back. So 8 means that we have a total of 8 stitches. So we have 4 and 4 that we're going to cross. So we're going to hold this right needle in the front of our work, and then we're going to slip these 4 stitches off onto our cable needle and hold it into the back of our work. And then we're going to knit the next 4 stitches off of our working needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to pull that up so I don't lose those stitches. And now we're going to knit these 4 off of our cable needle. So we want to put our working yarn back behind that like it's our working needle. And then we're going to knit all 4 stitches off of the cable needle. And then I dropped my stitch marker. So we're going to put it back on because we have those 3 stitches. So now we're going to purl 1 with the yarn in the back, slip 1 purlwise, and knit this last stitch. And then you can see how now you can see more, I have more stitches on there, so I give that a tug, so it elongates that last stitch. And now we're going to repeat rows 1 and 2 until we get to row 12. So that gave us a right leaning cable. So that's our bind off edge, my yarn up there. So you can see here where it's going to go under, and then the next row is going to be offset. So I just think it's really neat how the braids are created with cabling. So I will be back to show you row 12. So then you'll have a better idea of what it all looks like when it comes together. All right, so now we're ready for row 12. So with the yarn in the back, we're going to slip 1 purlwise, knit 1, purl 1, and you can see here that we're creating a seed or a seed stitch because we have a purl knit, which I really like that edge. So now we're going to cable 8 front. So with our right hand needle held in the back, we're going to slip 4 stitches onto our cable needle and hold it into the front of our work. And then we're going to knit 4 stitches off of our working needle. And then knit 4 stitches off of the cable needle. So this gives us our left leaning cable. Oops, I don't have that whole stitch. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to knit the last 4 before the stitch marker. So on the right side of your work, the stitches in between the stitch marker are all knit stitches. And then we're going to slip that stitch marker over, and then we're going to purl this first stitch with yarn in back, slip 1 purlwise, knit 1 stitch, and then give it a little tug. All right, so that gives you your right and your left cable, and then you repeat those 12 rows over and over again until you get your headband. And my head is 21.5 inches, so I feel like it's a little on the smaller side, but you can always add more stitches so that it's a little longer, and then seam it together. So whenever you bind off, you do want to bind off fairly tight because it does flare out a little bit. And you know, I had just now thought of that, but maybe even knit 2 together and bind off so that it doesn't flare out. And you can kind of maybe bring that in to match it. So anyways, that is worth playing with so that it doesn't flare out. So anyways, so I hope you enjoy this new headband pattern, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.